Welcome to another episode of the Eric Crocker Show. I'm your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. And of course, as always, on Wednesdays, we are joined by Coach Dezi. Coach Dezi, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I definitely want to let everyone know that this show is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. If you haven't already, which a lot of you have, download the app or go to underdogfantasy.com. And when you use promo code Crocky, they will double your deposit up to $100. I'll definitely be playing Underdog Fantasy during Thanksgiving, during all the games. Makes every game a lot more fun. 49ers game will always be fun. Uh, before we get into Talanoa Hufanga and his injuries and kind of what to expect from that, the timetable, and just really how it happened. I want to ask you how you have felt about this 2-game win streak. I think the defense has played a lot better. I don't know if that's because of Wilkes coming down to the field, but it looks like the 49ers defense of the first 5 weeks, the offense, you see George Kittle getting it going. He has three games of like 80 plus yards receiving. I don't know when's the last time we've seen that from George Kittle, so his usage is crazy. Offensively, as far as the weapons go, people seem to be healthy. The offensive line is getting a little banged up. Injuries after injuries. It almost feels like I think Spencer Burford might miss this week. Aaron Banks, he's been banged up. He's missed some time. We've seen Trent Williams. So I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but I guess let's just start with 2-game win streak. How are the vibes as far as you think about the 49ers right now?
The vibes are good, man. I love the role that we're on. It was great to see the start of that, being in Jacksonville live with my mom, watching Kittle get that touchdown, watching our defense just demolish and take the ball away and get it down to the end zone. Watching all of that was just art in motion. It was fantastic. And then to turn around, I live in the Tampa Bay area, and to watch us take down the Bucs in California was just fantastic. So I am just living my best life right now. The only downside is it really hurts my heart to see Huff go down. So I did not enjoy seeing that injury.
Before we get into Huff real quick, do you go anywhere to like watch the games, or do y'all, especially when the 49ers are playing Tampa Bay, do you watch it from home? Do you go to a bar or a restaurant to watch it, or how do you choose to kind of watch the 49er games?
Classically, I'm home because y'all haven't seen that side of me. It's not pretty all the time. But I did find out when I was in Jacksonville, I met up with a group who goes down to a restaurant down South Tampa. And they're there every 49er game. And I was like, yes, I'm going there. I'm going to be there. And then my poor little pup did not feel good all night. And I was up all night with him. And I wasn't sure that I could leave him. So I didn't make it out there. I'm looking to get out there maybe next week. But yeah, nobody's ready for that. And plus, I had to like drink. Like if there was alcohol involved, it was a whole thing because it was Tampa Bay. So yeah.
And you were at the 49ers Jaguar game just a week prior. So
Yes, it was fantastic. The weather was not ideal. It wasn't horrible, but it just wasn't ideal. My poor mom, bless her. It was kind of cold and wet and rainy and damp, and it's just all the things you don't want for, your poor mom to deal with. But she was happy to be there. We watched the whole game. It was great.
I saw some videos of some Tampa Bay fans saying that the 49ers brought the San Francisco weather with them. For people that are not in California, I do want to say the 49ers play in Santa Clara, a.k.a. it's Santa Clara, San Jose. However, it's like right there, right? Like San Jose is the big city, over 1 million population. Santa Clara is like a tiny little town right outside of San Jose. Matter of fact, if you're at the 49ers stadium and you want to go for like location, like San Jose will pop up. So it's that close to San Jose. But anyways, the weather in San Jose is drastically different than the weather in San Francisco. So there were a lot of people that were like, oh, you brought the San Francisco weather. And it's like, well, actually, 49ers playing Santa Clara and the weather's a little nicer there. It's sunnier. It gets warmer. It's not that gloomy overcast that you typically see in San Francisco and that y'all saw on the Sunday against the Jaguars. So I just kind of wanted to make sure, because I know if you're not from there, you just see San Francisco 49ers and people just assume like, oh, they're playing San Francisco or really close, right? Like just right outside of San Francisco, maybe like South City or what's another one? Daly City, something like that, where it's still like same area code and all that, maybe. But San Jose it's a maybe 40 miles south or something. It's a little ways away. The weather definitely changes. All right, but enough about the weather. Enough about 49ers Jaguars a couple weeks ago. Good win. You started this off talking about Talanoa Hufanga. And when I first saw it, and I've told everybody kind of like when I was the way I was kind of watching this game, I actually had 7-on-7 football tryouts. So I had for half the game, my phone's in my pocket and I'm listening unless I hear like something big happen, then I'll look. But I happened to be looking when Hufanga got hurt, and it looked. I kind of laughed a little bit, and I looked at they're showing a replay, and I'm talking to my bro, and I'm like, man, he got shook like when Barry Sanders whooped Rod Woodson, and Rod Woodson tore his ACL. Like that was the first thing that came to my mind. Like I just
Yeah.
remember Rod Woodson just getting shook really bad, tearing his ACL, going out, and that's exactly what Hufanga looked like. So at first I thought it was kind of just kind of joking or having fun with it. And then the news comes out that it's a serious injury, and not just serious, like they fear it's an ACL. And then now we know it's an ACL. So uh, that is extremely tough, one, to get injured that way, but also he has a long recovery ahead of him.
Yeah. ACLs are tough. The purpose of the ACL, it's crisscrossing ligaments, the ACL, PCL, on the inside of the knee, and it attaches from the femur bone onto the tibia, the big bone on the lower leg. And so what it helps prevent is that sliding of your femur on the tibia. And so because that's the action it's preventing, that's the action that it can be injured on. Meaning Huff's running down and he cuts. So he stops suddenly and then is cutting at the same time. And this is also the knee that he was already having some issues coming into the season with. So I'm really unsure if there was something kind of brewing that we maybe didn't fully know about. Obviously we didn't. And so he had he was the one that had the Baker cyst at the beginning of the season. So Baker cyst alone, as we've covered this on here before, but Baker cyst alone is just fluid in the knee that then pooches out the back. But what's causing the fluid in the knee? Was it previous meniscal injury? Was it that he strained his ACL before? Maybe there were some micro tears, some compromised tissue there. And then this is all it takes. My girlfriend's son, he's playing soccer. This is exactly how he tore his ACL. So same thing. When I was watching it live, of course, a couple beverages in, I kind of was like, oh man, he tweaked something there. I thought maybe the MCL, but that actually, when you look back at it and from over high, I only saw it from front on. When you see it from over high, you can see the forward motion and then cut into it. So that's it. ACL's done. He's going to probably have surgery in the next week or two. And then it's easily, 9-month rehab plus or minus, depending on how well he heals from it and how much he puts into rehab.
We have seen a lot of people kind of come back at various timetables when it, as it pertains to these injuries, right? So when you see these ACL injuries like this, is there like a more normal timetable, like 6 to 9 months? I kind of hear those numbers thrown out there. Does it depend on the player? I remember Jerry Rice, and this was at a time where, the modern technology and the surgeries and everything weren't even as advanced as now. He got hurt week 1 and came back later that year off of a torn ACL. So we saw that with Rice. We've seen some people have really quick recoveries. I think Adrian Peterson came back fairly quick and ran for 2,000 yards. Like that was amazing when he did that. But typically you don't see that or that type of return, or people kind of return back to being themselves. So what are your thoughts on maybe, or what should the expectations of the 49ers fans be as it pertains to the recovery of this injury for Talanoa Hufanga?
I think at this point, there's no rush, right? We're in November. There's no chance he's coming back before the end of January, early February. That's just not going to happen.
Right.
I know I've heard in certain spaces that I've been in on Twitter questions about, well, if Aaron Rodgers can, come back from his Achilles tear, but this is not the same surgery. So that surgery was augmented by something that we've talked about here, surgical tape, that is a new type of suture that gets applied and sewn in at the same time as the repair. That's not done with an ACL. So ACLs are a different animal. There's not been a whole lot of change from just a structural point of view. But if this is what we call a virgin knee, which has never had any kind of surgery before, he's got a great chance of it. Just, it's not a revisional surgery. He can go in there. They can get a really good, tight repair. And then again, it's just about rehab. Now, talk about Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice, we know him as someone who's just built different, right? He was just first one to show up, last one to leave, and he just was a workhorse. And so a lot of people, when you make it to the NFL, are somewhat of a workhorse. But, I think you've talked about before, there's some people who are just, it's rehab. And then there's some that's like rehab is all they can think about because they're dying to get back on the field. So fortunately, unfortunately for us as fans, he'll have the time to recover. There's no pressure to go too hard and come out maybe too early before he really has it fully recovered. But also we've lost a big structure on our secondary, which we've already kind of had some concerns at even prior to this. So.
We got JM617. He says mid-season next year. I actually think he might be back a little before that, because even if you just say 9 months from now, which typically like 9 months is kind of a full recovery. Now, that's not saying that he'll be 100% feel like himself, especially mentally, because there's that mental hurdle that a lot of times I have to overcome with these injuries. But 9 months for an ACL, typically you're kind of back on the field at that time. So if you're talking about 9 months from now, that's preseason. And that's not saying that he'll be back in preseason. Yeah. But if you told me that, he'll be ready for week 1, especially if he gets the surgery now. Sometimes they put off the surgeries, depending on the swelling, right? I don't want to talk out of my ass, but is it depending on the swelling and seeing if they can go in there and have their surgery now, or if there is a swelling, then they have to kind of wait a little bit. And sometimes you see that surgery get pushed off. I feel like, what was the guy's name, man? Tarvarius Moore. I feel like Tarvarius Moore, when he tore his ACL, took a while after, maybe a month or two or something like that. Then you hear they're having the surgery. It's like, damn, why he didn't get the surgery already? So I think Hufanga, if he goes in and gets his surgery ASAP, before December, if you told me he was ready and available for week 1, that wouldn't be a surprise to me at all. I don't know. Does that timetable?
I agree. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Now, we talked about Javon Kinlaw, his knees, and why wasn't he back from his ACL, and he didn't look quite as strong. And again, you never know how people are going to recover. I would say probably 9 times out of 10, people recover just as we expect from an ACL. But sometimes they can just, have a little bit more inflammation, a little bit more swelling, things that just kind of linger. So it all depends on what type of healer he is. So I can sprain my ankle. I tell patients this all the time. I can sprain my ankle, and Eric, you can sprain your ankle. Your ankle may look completely normal, no swelling or minimal swelling, and mine looks like, really inflamed, swollen. People are like, oh, it's broken for real. And it could not, neither one of us have a break. It's just our body's reaction to the injury. And so that's what we don't know, and that's very patient specific. So if he's someone who isn't like a hyper inflammatory responder, then I think he'll be okay. And it's, again, a virgin knee. He's got the best case scenario in front of him to get better. Plus he's got some great teammates that have been down that road, right? Nick Bosa, Chase Young. So he's got a good support system there, and I have all the confidence that he'll be back early season next year.
My buddy Eric Rogers, and some of y'all might remember Eric Rogers. The 49ers signed him. He actually played with me in Portland in the Arena Football League, and he was one of my buddies out there. And next thing you know, he goes to the CFL, which we knew he would go. He was killing it. I actually thought he would go straight to the NFL from there. But he ended up going to the CFL, killed it that year, won a Grey Cup, and a bunch of NFL teams were trying to bring him in and sign him. The 49ers paid him a decent amount of money for someone that was coming from another league. And in training camp, tore his ACL with Chip Kelly and those guys. Well, he tore his ACL, in training camp. Fast forward to the next year, the next offseason, he still didn't feel quite 100%. Now, I also don't think he attacked his
rehab
recovery, the rehab, the way he should have. But that's near her there. He was not 100% the next training camp, which is when Kyle Shanahan, those guys, took over. And they were like, we gotta let you go. So they ended up cutting him, and that was unfortunate because he was a really good talent. Went back to the CFL, played well, but that knee was never quite the same. Quite the same. So hopefully Hufanga attacks this the way that the rehab, the way that we feel like he will, and he comes off as someone that's an extremely hard worker, very attention to detail. You hear about like really what makes him good, right? It's not. There are some people that are like, "Oh man, reminds me of Troy Polamalu." It's like, well, Troy Polamalu was kind of freakish, right? He was a four
Yeah.
three athlete. He was fast. He could, play up coverage. Everything was great. Hufanga has to win in different ways because he's not a special athlete. So a lot of it is the detail, the hard work, the mental processing, and all those things. I think will go into his rehab and hopefully make this a speedy recovery for him and get him back on the field for what will be a contract year for him. So that's big right there. You want to be the best version of yourself heading into that contract season. I do want to ask you, 49ers, I think this happened. I wouldn't say we might have talked about it a little bit, but Chase Young, uh, obviously the 49ers were able to trade for him at the deadline. Since then, he's had pretty good impact, getting sacks in games, playing well opposite Nick Bosa. But there is a question that was posed to me on Monday. So I'm going to ask you this question now. And this is going to tie into how well Brandon Aiyuk has been playing. And it might not even be like a super fair question, but Brandon Aiyuk, drafted by the 49ers, actually traded up for him to get him. You also have a fifth-year option. So maybe they won't be posed with this scenario at all, and they just kind of let things play out. But if you had to choose, right? If I'm telling you right
I
now,
hate these questions.
I know the hypothetical questions. If I'm telling you right now, we don't got money for both, and even the fifth-year option money on Brandon Aiyuk is kind of a decent amount of money. Uh, you can only keep one, Chase Young or Brandon Aiyuk. Who are you keeping? Actually, also real quick before while you're thinking about it, I think that Brandon Aiyuk will actually cost a little bit more money. So
I'm going with
he's
Chase
just
Young.
he's balled out. Yeah, Chase Young injured. It hasn't had that like super breakout year. So this might be like the cheapest you can get Chase Young on, especially if he finishes this year strong. I still don't think it demand like more than Aiyuk, who his teammates are throwing out numbers 20 to 25 million a year. So
Yeah.
I don't think Chase Young will get that kind of money regardless. But if you had to choose, do you want that legit edge rusher opposite Nick Bosa, or do you want to keep Brandon Aiyuk and continue to try to find an edge rusher opposite Nick Bosa?
I think there's a lot of development left for Chase Young, and I feel like he's in a great place for that to happen. And I just think there's nothing sexier than a set of bookends on a defensive line. I love defense. I'm all about defense. That is where I'm putting my money. Not that Brandon Aiyuk is replaceable. Please, y'all know he just posed this impossible question on me. This is why I probably would not be a great GM. But, I feel like we have enough weapons on the offensive side of the ball um, if push came to shove. But I feel like Chase Young coming has made an impact on our defense in a positive way. And I'm going to say that instead of saying it was Wilkes coming out of the booth and being on the on the field. It's more Chase Young in the addition to the defensive line, in my opinion. But it's a very tough call, and I don't think there's any wrong answer there.
All right, there's some people in the chat, and I see
Am I getting roasted
Joseph
here?
here. Nah, Joseph says maybe Bosa can convince his brother to come play for the cheap next year. That can happen. One thing I've noticed about the Bosas, they are all about their money. I don't think either one of them are convincing any of the other to come for any type of cheap pay. So,
There's no cheap and Bosa's in the same line. That statement's not happening.
and there's typically no cheap in the NFL. So even when we think about Brandon Aiyuk, right, and he's heading into next year will be his fifth-year option year, so they technically don't have to do any type of contract negotiations with him. They actually can wait to the offseason and then franchise tag him, right? Like there's ways to keep Brandon Aiyuk around, but even then, even that franchise tag money is going to be a large amount. I think the fifth-year option amount will be decent as well. So there's no cheap way around Brandon Aiyuk. I don't think. Now, I think he's definitely earned his money, but even him, I think there will be some people like, oh, well, he's in a great situation for him. Like, run me my money. Like, that's what these guys care about most. They got kids, they got families. So, Brandon Aiyuk, you hear his teammates you hear one say, that's a $20 million a man, 20 million a year. man right there. And then the next one says 25 million a year. So they understand what type of money he's going to be demanding if he were to hit the open market. I don't think the 49ers let him hit the open market, and maybe they find a way to be able to keep both. But I have also said if I had to choose, just in general, between a star receiver or a star edge rusher, and I'm not saying that Chase Young is a star edge rusher. Yeah,
Yeah.
but if he continues on this trajectory and helps the defense the way that he has, if I have to choose between that edge rusher or a receiver, I'm going edge rusher like 100% of the
Yeah.
time. So that's just how I uh, like view it. Like the
Yeah.
edge rushers, they're just so much harder. Like receivers, you can manufacture touches for guys. So even if they're kind of limited in an area, or let's say like Debo Samuel, right? Like not an amazing route runner, but it's like,
Right.
well, he's not an amazing route runner, but we can use him like this, and we can figure out ways to give him touches in space, and we can do those things.
Right.
Edge rushers, you can either get to the quarterback or you can't.
Right.
you know, so defense in general, I think that's why you see some teams kind of go defensive heavy because it's really difficult to just find guys that can impact the game. And when you're looking at Nick Bosa already, and then you're still going to have Hargraves, you're still going to likely have a guy like Armstead, and then you pair Chase Young, and you have those guys, even if it's for just the next 2 years. I think that would be great for the 49ers. And you have to find a receiver. I see 187 say draft Jerry Jr. All right, so uh, USC, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. They
Oh,
have
yeah.
Brendan Rice, who's
Yep.
Jerry Rice's son, who's
Monster.
having a breakout year. He's
Yes.
he's doing terrific. He was a transfer from Colorado, and that is not Jerry Jr. I actually, when I was on the San Jose SaberCats, Jerry Rice Jr. tried out when I was on the team. They had him out there for the week. He didn't make it, but Jerry Rice Jr. was out there. So that was Jerry Rice Jr. that I saw trying to try out and make the San Jose SaberCats team in the Arena Football League. Brendan Rice actually is funny because if you look at his face, and it's like this dude looks dead on his dad. Like when you look at his face in his helmet, but he's a big body receiver, which I think Jerry Rice a little underrated with how big of a receiver he was. I mean,
Yeah.
6'2", 200 pounds. Like that's a good size
Mhm.
receiver. His son, I think he even is a little bit bigger than that, like 6'3". He looks to be like 210 or something like that. But Brendan has done a terrific job coming on strong. So we're not talking draft stuff yet. I know we'll get to that in the offseason, but he will be an intriguing prospect. I don't know how high he's going to go. Right now, it feels like early day 3, like maybe like round 4, or maybe late day 2, round 3 with a comp pick, maybe in that area. But I don't know if he's someone who you say, we're going to draft this guy to replace Brandon Aiyuk. I don't think you say that. So there will be guys, depending on, and this, okay, I left this part out of this hypothetical situation that probably never happened. If you were to pick between Chase Young and Ayuk, the one thing you do have with Ayuk is because he has the 50-year option, like you can trade him, and you at this rate, he'll never be worth more than he's worth right now, right? Like if he continues on this trajectory, gets his 1,400 yards or whatever, and you're like, all right, it's going to be really hard to pay you. We're already paying Debo Samuel, whatever. We got to trade you away. If you did that, oh my goodness. Well, first of all, see, I have all these things going through my
I'm
mind.
like, oh, you're going down the
Down
rabbit.
this rabbit hole of some decisions that they made. But if you did that, um, you'd essentially have 2 first-round picks. I think you can go for a first round. We saw that with Stephon Diggs. We saw that with AJ Brown when the Eagles were like, or excuse me, when the Titans were like, we're not going to draft. We're not going to sign him to big money. We'll trade him. Didn't work out for them. They drafted the kid out of Arkansas, Treylon Burks. He hasn't been great for them. But that rabbit hole I was going down was we all foresaw this coming. We all knew that there will be a challenge between Debo and Ayuk when kind of things happen, especially when it was like Debo is going to get paid. And then you could feel it coming on like Ayuk is going to get paid. Are you going to have this super expensive receiver room, even though you're not like a offense that is powered by your receivers in the sense of, it's still run heavy. It's still just kind of spread the ball around. It's still just kind of go with the high hand, right? But they had a chance to trade Debo Samuel. And they would have gotten the 10th overall pick, who in turn ended up being Wilson, Garrett Wilson, who won Offensive Rookie of the Year, and he's been terrific for
Yeah.
the Jets. So if if there was a chance that would make it a no brainer that they could bring back Aiyuk, it would have been trade Debo, draft Garrett Wilson. Now you have him and his 5th-year option. You'll be able to re-sign Aiyuk right now, and then by the time his money starts running low, you would have to pay Wilson, and it would just kind of be that natural handoff there. Uh,
Right.
but they missed out on that opportunity, and we'll see how that happens. So, uh, anyways, enough of this receiver talk. Enough of hypotheticals trading away one of our better players. How have you felt about Brock Purdy? I know you've been a huge fan. Right now, everything that he's doing has been like I mean top in the league. Like number one in passer rating, number one in QBR, yards per attempt. Like everything is like through the roof. So you were really high on him, as were a lot of others. Even this offseason, you're like not worried about anything. The surgery, he's going to come back. He's going to be fine. I'm not worried about that at all. He's a baller, and we saw a couple moments in some games where he had some late game turnovers that I don't think helped the 49ers in those moments. But outside of those few moments, couple moments, he's been pretty in the bad Browns game, but he's been really good. I mean, super consistent. Damn near makes it look easy. My brother and everybody will be watching the games, and they have a really hard time grasping what Brock is because when they just watch him, they're like, he's not this elite quarterback. But then the results, everything about the results say he's an elite quarterback. So what are your thoughts right now on where you're at with Brock Purdy?
That's my quarterback, man. I am so proud of him. Like he just keeps proving people wrong. I love it. I think that, the 3-game L's that we took were, I still think part of it, I'm going to contribute to his concussions. I think that's not the guy that we've seen over the last, year almost now. So I'll chalk it up to that. I mean, this is not his ceiling. I still feel like there's still more for him to learn and grow and connections he's going to make with teammates that's going to just make everything gel even further. I do worry that defenses are going to figure it out because we know what his superpower is. It's his processing. It's him getting the ball out quick, and it's all timing and rhythm. So I think there is an opportunity there. So I would hope that as we move further down the road, we look at protection, right? Offensive line. With Burford potentially being out this week, the right side is going to be a little bit weaker. So I do worry a little bit about this game, although the Seahawks have a ton of injuries on their own side. In terms of their team, there's a lot going on and a lot of star players too, not just the quarterback. So I think it'll be an interesting game, but I'm here to rock with Brock all the way through and see how this kid grows. I mean, this is still season 2, and you look at all these quarterbacks struggling right now. I mean, Bryce Young, you've got, some of these quarterbacks even who just got benched at the Jets. The kid, Zach Wilson, like he's still young in the NFL era. And so you've got these quarterbacks out here, and he's just, like you said, making it look easy, making it click. And part of that's Shanahan and Greasy and, the team he has around him. He's just really stepped into a good situation. But he's also, as much as he's given in terms of his wide receivers, his backs, his offensive weapons, he's also contributed just as much. So I think there's a beautiful symbiotic relationship there. And I think he works perfectly in this system, period.
Now, he definitely does. And I see someone in the chat here. Where was it? Right here. Khalil Young. He says, tell your brothers to watch the film on Purdy. They probably won't watch the film. They do watch all the games, mostly to hate on the 49ers and hope that they lose. Same thing I do with the Cowboys. Like, I watch a lot of Cowboy football because I just want to just talk bad to my brother and them. Regardless of how much of Purdy they watch, most people are not able to grasp that he's as good as he is because it doesn't look like how you traditionally see quarterbacks look when they're good. I think that's the best way that I can kind of explain it, right? It's like watching probably Drew Brees. I bet when Drew Brees started clicking, he didn't click this early in his career. We watched him in San Diego with the Chargers, and he was like cool, you know. Uh, but when you start to see him come on, especially with the Saints, it's like, man, he's doing all these things like at a high level, but there were still always like these other quarterbacks that you would take over him, like during that time. Maybe some that might be more physically talented or make certain type of throws or however you want to spin it. Even though he was doing things at a high level, so I think that's kind of Brock is getting kind of the Drew Brees effect, where I think people will definitely notice how good he's doing, acknowledge it, but there's always going to be these other quarterbacks that would take over him, even though the results are saying
Yeah.
that this guy is playing at a higher level than these guys.
Yeah.
But it's just the way that it looked with Drew Brees, a smaller guy. I think early on maybe had like a little bit bigger arm, but like, it's kind of that sneaky, that mobility, especially early on with Drew Brees. Uh, I think it was hard for people to really grasp that, hey, no, this guy's one of the better quarterbacks in the league, but it's like, nope, Ben Roethlisberger, right? Like, because he's just the bigger, the stronger, the
Yeah.
arm, and got the receivers are throwing the ball all around.
They want the
So
look.
I think that's what Purdy is going through, and I think he'll continue to kind of go through that from outsiders. But I do feel like, especially now, more than ever, and even if you were, I don't want to use the word skeptical like I was, but I don't even think skeptical is a word. It was just like, man, like we'll see. Like, let's see what it continues to look like. You just kind of alluded to, teams continue to watch him and how he plays, and do they uh, come up with a game plan to kind of like slow that down. But so far, I'm like, I don't know if there is a game plan to slow that down. I think you just have to hope that he has an off game, like, or maybe there's bad weather like there was in Cleveland and where he didn't play very well. Outside of that, I think Brock Purdy is who he is, and he does a terrific job, and uh, he's just he's a baller, or how can I say, he's the real deal. That's what it looks like, and every game that goes by, I continue to just say more like Snead was right. Like Snead was like, man, it reminds me a lot of Drew Brees, right? And it's just
Yeah.
like Drew Brees, Drew Brees, Drew Brees. Like maybe not the biggest of arm, but just makes the right decision, gets the ball out, timing, rhythm, makes the right throws. Is accurate far more times than not. Runs the offense very well, and it just continues to see it like Drew Brees, Drew Brees, Drew Brees. So I think it's terrific to see that. I would say hopefully the 49ers can help him a little bit more with the offensive line. And that might be the next step. We're talking about receivers. We're talking about Brandon Aiyuk and all this. And the other, I've complained a lot about the usage of George Kittle, which finally over the last 3 games, I think they've utilized him way more. But the offensive line, Purdy took 4 sacks last week. And that kind of flew under the radar a little bit because, he had a perfect passer rating. The 49ers still won. But the O-line, as we figured heading into the season, would kind of be an issue. So have we talked at all about Aaron Banks and whatever injury he's going through? Do you know anything with that?
So he's got turf toe.
Yeah.
And what turf toe is, it's a stress at the, actually, you know what? I think I can present, and I have the picture. Do you want me to try to bring it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
While she's looking that up, I got my guy OG Hill right here, and he says Brandon Aiyuk be singled up because of scheme and the fact that he gets 5 to 6 targets a game. Chris comes, he says, "Can we call in?" All right, I can let y'all call in, but I do have Locked On 49ers soon, and I don't know exactly the time, so let me send the link now.
Can you see the image?
Yeah, I see the image right there. Oh, yep. But I can't be on too long because now I got to run my wife. She forgot her mouse to her computer. So she's asking me, like, can you bring my mouse? And it's like, well, I'm live right now and I don't know when I'm supposed to record with Locked On. But we'll bring a few callers on. All right. I'll just put the timer on everybody. So you'll have 3 minutes to kind of get your take. And then, all right. But so we will do the call. Matter of fact, here's the link right now. So you guys that do want to call in, here is the link to the chat. Boom. All right, here we go.
There it is. All right, so here's the metatarsal is the bigger bone here on the left of where the red marks are. And then you've got the phalanges. So that's the big toe to the right of the red marks. So the red marks is the metatarsal phalangeal joint, and that's your big toe. And what happens is there's different gradients from grade 1 all the way up to 3. Grade 1 is like just a stretching of the connective tissues that are around the joint. Grade 2, you might have some partial tears, and grade 3 is a complete rupture of the tendons and the connective tissue around the joint, and you can dislocate the toe. So the important thing is that the great toe, the big toe, carries about 90% of the body's weight. So every step you take, you are flexing this joint. So even a mild turf toe is not fun. You're going to feel it every time you walk, every movement you do with that toe. And so this is what Aaron Banks is dealing with. We don't know to what degree or severity it is, but this thing is not a friendly thing to have. It's a nagging thing, and it'll be something to watch even when he returns as to whether he re-aggravates it.
Gotcha. So we have seen injuries like this really derail people's career. I mean, I remember Deion Sanders, like that was a big issue he had, and I don't know if that is what led to the, amputating feet and things like, or toes and things like that for
Yeah,
him.
that's different. Yeah.
Okay, that's different. Okay, but he did late in his career before he actually could. People forget this. He actually retired and then came back and played with Baltimore Ravens. But prior to retiring, the first time, he was having issues with his toes. Late in that career, and a lot of it was turf toe. Um, how exactly do you get turf toe?
It's a hyperextension. So if this is the big toe, I'm pushing it up. So your toe lays here, and it's a hyperextension. So overly, the grip on the turf really pushing off is usually how it happens.
Okay, pushing off. I was gonna, because I'm like, how do you hyperextend your toe?
Yeah.
Like I can understand like fingers, they can get bent backwards certain way, but like your toes are like in your cleats, and there's not much movement that you can
Yeah.
have. But
when you go to clip your toenail and you pull that big toe back, think about your turf toe.
okay, I got you. So Aaron Banks, we'll see how long he ends up being out. Hopefully he comes back soon. And there are some people that are alluding to John Feliciano potentially replacing Spencer Burford in the starting lineup at right guard once Aaron Banks comes back. But prior to that, we might continue to deal with really an unstable offensive line where Brock Purdy, again, last game, sacked 4 times. And I don't think it's him getting sacked because he's just wanting to hold on to the ball too long. Typically, it might maybe once a game that could happen.
Yeah.
And he starts kind of running around. And he's done some weird things a little bit when he like throws the ball backwards or like throws the ball. He's like getting sacked and he like throws the ball. And I'm like, okay, don't do that. That's a little dangerous, buddy.
He held the ball this time. I noticed he protected the ball. If he was getting a sack, he just did it instead of trying to be Superman.
Just go down. You don't have to be Superman, which I've been watching this show. It's called The Boys. Have you heard of?
Oh, are you in season 1?
I'm in season 2, probably like episode 4 or so.
Okay, it's a lot. It's a lot.
So you watched both seasons or all of it?
I watched season 1.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, I'm done. It's too much.
Done?
It's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot.
So
definitely different type of superheroes there.
I've been watching Icons on Prime. I think it's on Prime. And that's what I was telling you. You need to watch the Jimmy Johnson one, because I know you ask a lot of questions about the mental part of games and
yes,
the sports psychology of things. Oh my gosh, Jimmy Johnson. And that, old fan of me would never watch anything Dallas related. But
yeah,
like, you know what? He's not playing anymore. He's a commentator. Let's watch it. But it's really fascinating. You might enjoy that.
All right. Icon. I'm gonna check that out. All right, here we go. We have a couple of callers that want to call in. And first up, we got Roscoe. So what up, Chris, man? How you doing?
What's up, Croc? What's up, Coach Dezi? How's it going?
Good. How are you, man? Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. I'm blessed, I got so much to be thankful for. I just thank God that I'm alive. I thank God that my football team is doing well, and I just thank God that I get to wake up and just live this life.
I need to thank God too, because I'm very appreciative. But one thing I'm not upset with him over, but maybe it's me, but maybe it's him because he didn't tell me to chill out. But man, there's something wrong with my shoulder. And one of my guys I talk with, Chris. All right, you know what? Real quick before we get to what you were saying, Roscoe, I just have to ask Coach Dezi this before I forget. So about 4 years ago or so, I was bench pressing, and I don't think I warmed up getting. I heard like this crunching noise, like a crunch. And I was like, and then after that, I didn't lift for a really long time, like maybe a year. I didn't lift any weights. And, I always think that things just go away, like, just pains and things like that. Like, oh, over time, just, let it heal. Like, you'll be fine. Well, this ain't fine. And anytime I go to bench press, it hasn't stopped me from really being able to lift like a lot of weight. But like the last time I went to bench press and I was doing like 275 pounds, I feel like it's like it hurts now. We had tryouts on Sunday. I couldn't even throw a football. And
Is it in the front or is it the side? Is there a place that's more
it's like right here,
tender?
kind of like right on top, kind of in the front a little bit.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. I feel it's like in there. That's what it feels like. It's in there, and like even right now, like I don't know. It's weird because like stuff like this I can do with like limited pain, but I definitely feel it. And then
What about
anytime I have any type
curls?
of real pressure on it,
Curls or raises? Does either one of those bother you?
no, see, like I can feel it. Like even reaching back, I feel it really bad reaching back like this.
Okay. Could be your rotator cuff. Could be your
Oh no,
biceps tendonitis. I mean, when you're doing curls with weights, do you feel it more when you do that? Or
no,
if
not
you
at all.
front raises with weights?
Not really. And even like side raises, I don't really feel it. It's really more of like a pressing motion, like anything going back this way or like behind my back. Like when I do this, I feel like a really bad strip. Like it's like a pain.
Okay, that might be your rotator cuff. You might have upset that. Hopefully not anything worse than that. So
Uh,
I'll connect with you offline and I'll give you some exercise maybe to help strengthen that rotator cuff, see if that helps it out.
all right. So we'll talk about that later. Mosquito Killer, I see you in the chat. I'll address this question 'cause I saw Greg. Greg's being funny. Don't listen to Greg. All right, but I will address that. But anyways, Roscoe, go ahead, man. What's good?
Hey, tell Greg that he need to. Well, Greg, you need to call me back. Stop being a casual. Anyway,
See, look, he be talking about me, and look, he ain't even called you back. That's crazy.
yeah, he's sick, bro. Anyways, listen. So first off, I wanted to talk about Fred Warner, DPOY, and you know how you said you wanted to kind of compare him to others and stuff. So I looked up Luke Kuechly's numbers, and Luke Kuechly had 156 tackles, 2 sacks, 4 interceptions, 7 pass defense, and 10 tackles for losses. And I think Fred Warner's on pace to dang near. I don't think he's going to get 156 tackles, but I mean, as we know, Fred Warner has 66 tackles, two and a half sacks, 3 interceptions, 5 tackles for losses, 3 forced fumbles. Luke Kuechly that year actually didn't force any. So I can't remember the pass deflections, but I mean, in that year, Robert Mathis had 19 sacks and 8 forced fumbles. I don't know, somewhere where it changed to where they just basically like MVP. MVP has become a quarterback's award, and now the defensive player of the year is kind of coming like a defensive lineman award. But Fred Warner, if we're being honest, I think Fred Warner, in my personal opinion, and I'm taking a fan of because you crack, I mean, I don't do this fanboy stuff, but in reality, if you're looking at Luke Kuechly's number compared to his, and then Myles Garrett do have 13 sacks right now, so if Myles Garrett gets 20 sacks, then yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer.
I
But
think right now, Myles Garrett, if and I don't know what the sports books look like, but I would say if they have like a
he's the
favorite,
leader.
yeah. And
He's the
I'm
leader.
not sure
I
it's
won't
really
disagree.
close. I don't know if it's close.
Well, I mean, you have to look at impact. You have to look at what a person is doing for their football team and what type of numbers the person is putting up. And I mean, the numbers that I'm reading to you, Fred Warner is having a better season than the DPO. He already has 8 pass deflections. He's going to pass Luke Kuechly in literally every stat, even interceptions, bro. Only thing he may not pass Luke Kuechly on is actually no, he's got 90 total tackles. So he's actually is on pace. So the season Fred Warner is having is a DPOY season. Again, Myles Garrett, I think, is the leader, but I think Fred is coming.
Fred is coming. Like, I think everybody's very aware, especially like when you're on one of the better teams, like you're going to be propped up anyways. But the Cleveland Browns are winning games right now, and it's because of him. Like he's forced several safeties. Like he almost forced two last week. He definitely forced one. I've seen him like knock balls out in the end zone, return for touchdowns. You know, he. If you want to know about impact, Fred Warner. What's that noise? Y'all hear that?
I mean,
Fred Warner. Let me see. Fred Warner. No, Trent Warner. Is that me?
I think it's you.
Let's see. All right. How about now? Is it still there?
perfect.
Nope.
All right. I'll just keep this on really low. All right. Anyways, you want to know about impact? I keep saying Fred Warner, but I meant Trent Williams. Trent Williams elected to stay in the game playing on one leg so that Jalen Moore didn't have to go up against Myles Garrett. Like that's the impact that, and still they beat the 49ers, like with PJ Walker at quarterback. So when we talk about impact and what Myles Garrett is doing, he's having a really special year. And like he's been going crazy. So I don't really think it's necessarily close. If anybody out there, if you bet on all those things, like definitely put it on Myles Garrett right now. Like he's gonna be the favorite. But I do like how Fred Warner has been playing.
Man, that's tough. I mean, to say it's not close is crazy because I mean, just the season that Fred is having, and I mean, he's about to put up some crazy numbers. I'll say this. He's got 2 primetime games coming up, and he hasn't had a lot of touchdowns this year. He's allowing a 68 quarterback rating against him. So Fred in the pass and run game is tearing it up. And again, he has 2 primetime games coming up. So he has the ability to really put people on notice and really to push the award. Same with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy has two primetime games for everybody. If he does really well, I think people are going to really start mentioning Brock Purdy for MVP because you won't find many quarterbacks playing better than Brock Purdy. Would you agree, Crock? Agree, disagree?
I agree, and I've been on record as saying, oh gosh, I hate how I hear it's like distorted. Do I hear that?
Roscoe, is that you?
No, it's not me. Watch, I put myself on mute.
All right, let's see. Do you still hear me distorted?
It's Roscoe.
Yeah, I don't know what you got going on, Roscoe. All right, but I am gonna get you out of here and get to the next caller.
That is you. I just muted myself.
When you unmuted yourself, that's when I heard it again. I don't know. I've turned my mic down, so I can't even hear it. But
I just want to say one last thing, Croc. Hufanga was actually having a really good season in pass coverage wise. He may not have put up the stats like last year, but I prefer a player who's playing a lot more cleaner. He had a 60%. I mean, he had a 60 quarterback rating against him. Average depth of target was 5.5 yards. So as a coverage wise, he was actually playing really well. Shout out to the 49ers. And just for anybody who tried to compare Brock Purdy to Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock is not Jim. Brock is better. By
Brock
far.
is him. Brock is not Jim. Brock is him.
Brock is NFC Player of the Week. Shout out to Brock Purdy, playing well. I mean, you have a perfect game. I think you kind of have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. All right, I am going to be putting people on the clock now. All right, so everybody's going to have 3 minutes to kind of, whatever it takes that you have. Go to my handy dandy stopwatch here or a timer. 3 minutes. All right, and the first person up is my guy Eric Dane. Shout out to Eric with a K. Good morning, Eric. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Croc? How are you?
Oh man, I'm just chilling, man. Chilling.
Nice. So I wanted to give my 2 cents about the conversation you guys were having earlier about Brandon Aiyuk and Chase Young. Personally, I think it's easier to replace someone like Chase Young than it is for Brandon Aiyuk, especially in this offense. I don't think that we really have a Brandon Aiyuk replacement in this offense. Brandon Aiyuk currently has more than twice as many receiving yards as any other wide receiver on the 49ers. He's got 831 receiving yards. Deebo Samuel, 395 receiving yards. I think this offense really benefits from having a pure wide receiver. I think you got CMC and Deebo are the 2 versatile weapons. You can move all over the field. They can catch it out of the backfield. They can run it out of the backfield. You can line Christian McCaffrey up at wide receiver. I think they're very versatile, but I don't think Deebo is a pure wide receiver, pure route runner, a guy that just is going to destroy one-on-one coverage every single time. I think Aiyuk fits that role. I don't think you can really go wrong with either. I think Chase Young is a great player. If they choose to keep Chase Young, I think that obviously benefits the defense. But I just think that it's easier to replace someone like Chase Young when you've seen them have production from guys like Samson Ebukam, Charles Menahu. I think with this defensive line with Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, and Javon Hargrave, they're going to be drawing a lot of attention. So I don't know it's good to have Chase Young. It's an upgrade over guys like Ebukam, but I don't know if you really need a Chase Young as your fourth defensive lineman when your other three defensive linemen are going to be drawing so much attention. I think you can find guys like Ebukam, Amenahu, things of that nature, plug them in on the other side. I think that you can find an adequate replacement. I think that the gap, the fall off going from Chase Young to a guy like Amenahu is smaller than the fall off would be going from Brandon Aiyuk to a guy like Juwan Jennings. Brandon Aiyuk has 61 targets this year. He only has 2 drops. So he's a sure-handed receiver. He gets open. He catches the ball. I think he's very reliable. He's a good option for Brock Purdy. He's a very consistent receiver. I think the offense kind of needs that receiver. I think if you lose Brandon Aiyuk and you replace him with a guy like Juwan Jennings, I like Juwan Jennings, but he's not as consistent as Brandon Aiyuk. And I think you need that consistent option to open up the passing game when I don't think that guys like Deebo Samuel or Juwan Jennings could really fill that role as a true number 1 wide receiver. So that's my opinion about that. That's why I think that if it was up to me, I would keep Brandon Aiyuk. I think it would be more difficult to replace him, and his specific skill set that he brings to the offense, I think, is what the offense requires. And I don't think that Deebo Samuel can duplicate that. I think Deebo Samuel is a great player. He's got a different skill set. He's a run after the catch guy. He's a gadget guy, move them all around, make the defense wonder where he's going. I think Brandon Aiyuk is that true number 1 wide, maybe not a number 1 wide receiver, but he's the true receiver that you need. Route running, reliable catching, getting open, catching the ball, moving the chains. And I think that if you were to replace him with someone like Juwan Jennings, might not be as consistent. That might set the offense back a little bit. Whereas if you replace Chase Young, if you find like some free agent edge rusher, or even if you stick with Drake Jackson, hopefully Drake Jackson improves a little bit. All right, that definitely wasn't me, by the way. Was that the 3 minutes? Am I?
Yeah, that's the 3 minutes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's all I want to say. I think if it was up to me, I would keep Aiyuk. I think it's easier to replace Chase Young than it would be to replace Brandon Aiyuk.
All right, awesome. Appreciate you, Eric, coming in.
All right, thanks for
Eric
taking my call. Have a nice day.
All right. We got Gammon Brown here, and he says, what was Goodwin's numbers in the offense? And if this is off the dome, not good 2018, but 2017, I believe he was 30 yards shy of 1,000 yards. So Marquise Goodwin was almost 1,000-yard receiver in this offense. Was it consistent, though? Because next year they had to trade for Emmanuel Sanders mid-season because they weren't getting out of Kendrick Bourne, Deebo Samuel, Goodwin, Trent Taylor, all those guys. They weren't getting exactly what they wanted out of those guys, so they had to go and trade for Emmanuel Sanders. So that's the part as well where Aiyuk, you do get a level of consistency. I think there's a little bit more influx in his or volume in the passing targets towards him this year. So now you just see him doing more. Yeah, I'd even feed him a little bit more. All right. Here we go. Next caller coming in. We got another Eric with a K. Eric Wallace. Eric, good morning. How you doing?
Eric.
Good morning. How y'all doing today?
Good. How are you?
Oh, doing good.
Okay. I'm actually a Seahawks guy, but I'm also a respectable guy, and I don't really trash talk the other teams. So I really like Purdy. He's really something special. I feel like Kittle was big time. Yeah, you all got a lot of talent.
Yeah, a lot of talent.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this game tomorrow night? So Thursday evening, obviously 49ers Seahawks play. Do you like your guys' chances of winning? Who's going to play? Is it going to be Geno Smith? Is it going to be Drew Lock? 'Cause I know Geno left the game for a little bit. He's kind of banged up. So do you know who y'all quarterback is going to be?
I'm hearing it's going to be Geno, and to be honest with you, after that performance on Sunday, I'm very nervous.
Nervous? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be a big game for the Seahawks. I mean, you have an opportunity to really kind of close that gap in the NFC West. You lose, I think you go down 2 games behind the
Yeah.
49ers, and 49ers own the tiebreaker. Then obviously in a couple of weeks, 49ers play again. But if the Seahawks have any chance of catching the 49ers, I think they definitely have to win this game at home in Seattle, where you
Yeah.
get it on a short week. Like, that's the best time to try to win a game like this. It's short week. You're at home. Thanksgiving, 49ers maybe rather be at home with their family. They can't. So maybe you could look at this kind of like a sneak attack on the 49ers. What are your thoughts on
Maybe.
that?
Well, it's happened before on a Thanksgiving night game versus San Fran. So who knows? It might happen, might not. I don't know.
Yep, there we go. I love the analysis there. It might happen, it might not. All right, Eric, I'm gonna get to the next caller. I appreciate you coming on.
There's
All
a
right.
lot of Seahawk injuries right now. So the report that came out this morning, Kenneth Walker with an oblique, Geno Smith, as we know, with the elbow, DJ Dallas, a shoulder injury, Kobe Bryant, toe injury, Tariq Woolen, shoulder, Jamal Adams, knee. I mean, this list goes Tyler Lockett, hamstring, DK Metcalf, toe. I mean, there's just, and that's maybe half the list. I mean, there's so many things. They're banged up. So
What I definitely favors the 49ers. I see Jay coming on. He's shaking his head. What are your thoughts on all that, Jay?
Yeah, seriously, dude, I had no idea that the Seahawks were that battled. When I sit and see a team, I want to see them at their best because I want no excuses when we, when we whoop you. But hey, the reason why I called in was because Croc, love the show, Coach Dezi. I love your medical analysis and the fact that you know the actual game of football. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
The comment I want to make though was that the thing with Chase Young and BA. So Chase Young has definitely made a definite impact on this defense. I mean, it's only been 2 games, but he's definitely made an impact. And like, I think it was the Jacksonville game when they put Bosa and Young in the A gap, that was like brilliant. It was absolute brilliance. But the point that I'm trying to make though is that yes, Chase Young is replaceable, but BA, who else on this team can win one-on-one matchups? Nobody. I love Debo, but Debo can't do it. Jawan Jennings definitely can't. Who else can win one-on-one matchups?
Nah, that's
nobody.
George Kittle.
I was going to say Kittle. But he's not. He's utilized too much in the blocking to be utilized that way.
Well, I mean, but not only that though, but he's inside the hashes. I mean, you need somebody to win one-on-one matchups outside the hashes, like outside the numbers. The only person on that team that can do it is BA. So you pay him. I would trade Debo because you have another weapon, CMC. He can do the same thing as Debo does. Come on, let's not waste our money.
So you would say, no, I'm going to keep Chase Young because I've seen the big difference he's made on his defense. So figure out how to pay him. And here's the tough thing too. He will likely hit the market. Like if I'm his agent, I tell him, ball out, be great, hit the market, and give the 49ers the opportunity to match whatever is out there. Like that would be the conversation I have with him. But let's say the 49ers, hypothetically speaking, can match. You're like, keep Brandon Aiyuk because that's the one guy at least you get a certain level of consistency from him. He can play at a high level. He can win his one-on-one battles, and he comes through in the clutch. Great. But Deebo Samuel, the guy who, he is dynamic in his own way, terrific in his own way. But, if you can get something for him, you trade him. All right, so here's my question now. All right, and I'll pin Deebo and Aiyuk against each other. And, of course, y'all, this is all hypothetically speaking. Would you, if you can get a first round for Aiyuk, but an early third round for Deebo, which trade are you doing?
Honestly,
they have to take on Debo's contract. Like that's a big part of it. Whoever trades for him, they got to take his contract on. So.
True, but I would definitely get rid of Debo first, not BA. And honestly, here's the thing about the whole Chase Young thing. And I know I'm running out of time, but here's the whole thing.
I didn't put the timer on you. You get it.
The brilliance about that whole Chase Young trade was the fact that they traded him for a third rounder, right?
Late third.
And right, huh?
Yeah, like a
Okay,
comp. Yeah.
right. So, all right. So look, they traded a comp pick for Chase Young. They bought him in. I have to pay him like what, $500,000? What was it, like $630,000, something like that.
Yeah.
So you can either try and match what any other team offers him, or you lose him. But guess what happens though? You get that third round comp pick right back. Simple.
I think that's what they were thinking too when they made the trade. It's like, hey, we get this up because if we let him walk, we get that pick back, albeit the following year. But I mean, they're kind of loaded right now with comp picks anyways. So I don't think it's something that's going to hurt them in third round comp pick.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but I mean, like, but look at what all right. So the whole Chase Young thing, if he walks, it's still a wash. You don't leave, you lose $500,000 or something like that. But you lose BA, you lose your only person that can win one-on-one matchups.
Yeah.
Dude, come on. Really? Honestly, to me, I think it's a no-brainer. You keep BA, you try to match Chase Young. If he walks, he walks. And you can fucking, I'm sorry. I don't want to demonetize you. If he walks, he walks, and you can replace him. But that's just, sometimes I've been accused of being overly logical, but hey.
Well, you're not being illogical because right here, Gammon says Danielle Hunter, Brian Burns, Chase Young, all in free agency. Who do you take? I don't know about Brian Burns and what his situation is, and if he'll hit free agency. I doubt they'll let that happen. Especially
he'll be pricey if he does. But he'll be really pricey if he does hit free agency. And I mean, yeah. I don't know about that.
Danielle Hunter has been super productive. Like, I mean, I think he's double-digit sacks right now. So
yes, sir.
He's another guy that's going to be pricey. I think out of those three guys, Chase Young might be the one who still has a lot of upside, still very young, and you could probably get for the cheap. And you might just say, you know what? We don't need – I mean, obviously you would love to have Brian Burns and Danielle Hunter, great. But we just need somebody that can complement what we get from Nick Bosa. Like, can you take some of the pressure off of him? And if that is a little bit cheaper than a Brian Burns or Danielle Hunter, which again, they're both going to be pricey to some extent, but Chase Young might be just the cheapest, right? And if you could save a few million a year because you go Chase Young over these other guys, just building the roster out around Brock Purdy, offensive line, stuff like that, you might have a little bit more money to allocate towards that O-line or wherever else. So.
We'll see. And the other part about it, and I put in the comments earlier, is the fact that honestly, maybe you can get Chase Young a little cheaper because you can leverage his injury history against his contract. I mean, it sounds messed up. That's like a GM attitude, but I mean, that's really, that's what I would do.
I think it's going to be, it's not even about like, if you're trying to get a deal done prior to free agency, then yeah. But again, if I'm his agent, you're testing free agency no matter what.
Yeah,
so we're going to see what these other teams are offering. And 49ers, we will give you the opportunity to match. But I'm definitely going to see what, So you can try to leverage injuries and pass and all that. But if the Detroit Lions are like, hey, we're going to – that might be a bad example. If the, I don't know, Jacksonville Jaguars are like, hey, we'll pay you $20 million a year, then all right, 49ers, you got to come in at $20 million. So now I don't know if that's what he's going to get. I'm just throwing the number out there.
No, but hold on. But then again, though, that Josh Allen from the Jaguars, he's a free agent next year too. So, you have options out there. Don't. And then on top of that, look about Trent Williams and shit, right? So Trent Williams left the Commanders and came to the Niners. He liked the environment. I'm thinking that Chase Young is thinking the same thing.
Trent tested free agency. Remember the 49ers? He was about to be a Chief. Trent Williams was about to be a Kansas City Chief. And Kyle was like, do whatever you got to do to keep him. And they made him the highest paid tackle in the NFL. So,
yes, but they had to bring him in first.
Right.
So they brought Chase in. And right now, from what the reports I'm sitting there reading is that he's liking it. It's a change of environment. It's a winning environment. It's the first time that he's ever had a winning environment. Dude, you can get him not on the low, but cheaper than. I'm thinking that he might take a couple $1 million less rather than going to another team that he might get paid, but he's going to be losing. I think Chase Young wants to be a winner. So
well, you brought up a good player here. I mean, Trent Williams, he's got an expiration date. And so we're talking about using our
probably next year.
we're
Yeah, like
gonna
next year.
so we're gonna have to save those high picks for a left tackle. I mean, we've got to look at that. So,
Well, I mean, I'm not so much worried about the high picks. I'm just worried about trying to keep Chase Young NBA at the same time. And
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, I'm just keeping talking points on how to. I'm sorry. Look, I'm a retired veteran, but right now I'm a I'm a logistician for Purdue, so I negotiate for a living. So yeah, that's what I'm. So that's how I'm approaching it.
nice.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So all right, look, I've kept y'all long enough. Hey, thank you for your time. Yo,
Hey,
Croc,
thank
love
you
the
for your
show.
service. Thank you for your
Huh?
service, Jay.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you guys. And trust me, whenever I get the time, I will be calling in more often, man.
All right, awesome. Appreciate you.
Crocky, man, yo, love you, dog.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Peace.
Shout out to my guy Jay. Shout out to my guy Jay. Thank you for your service again. Couple things here. Mosquito Killer said, I don't know if this has been addressed, but what happened with Greg Pinelli? All right. So Greg, this is what we were trying to do. I've kind of explained it in the past, but people probably forget. What we were trying to do is have our like own legit show. I mean, he's really in the quarterback community. He's good with a lot of people. And we were going to be able to get like really good guests on. I mean, he reached out to Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner's like, yeah, we could do that. So the thought of it, awesome, great. The tough thing is just making it happen. And it's probably just Greg does his thing. I'm more on this side of things. So it's probably a little bit more on me getting it going and feeling like, he should be like paid for what he does, because he's great at it. So we would love to do the film breakdowns. We would love to talk about Purdy and all these other quarterbacks and have great guests and shows on. But we really want it to be its own thing. And I think it's just taking the time to set that up, And it's not just as simple as just starting a YouTube channel and doing it. It's, a bank account, for when we get monetized, like where does that go? Do we make it like a legit business name? Because we do feel like it's something that can be big. So making sure we do it right from the start. So Greg, he wants to talk 49. He wants to talk QBs. I want to do it with him. And he can come on anytime, but it is like making sure that he's taken care of for his time. And really, if we do it right and things like that, you want to do it right from the start for it to be as big as it can, because I think that would be like a really special show, not just in 49ers community, but kind of along the lines of not the same, but let's say like JT Sullivan, right? Like JT does a great job with QB school, and he's the guy. Like he does all these great breakdowns. It wouldn't be to that extent. It would be like two guys kind of just shooting the shit, but we will get to the film study, and we would have great guests on and interviews from guys like like a Kurt Warner, or we've already brought on like Brock Purdy's trainer. When we talked to him in the past, that was a big show. And we've done a lot of the stuff we did numbers. So figuring out how to make it right and make it work, but I have to do it. And my days get kind of like jumbled up and busy. And I'm by nature a procrastinator. So I'm probably the wrong person to get started with things like that. So at some point we will get it going, but he likes to joke and say that I fired him and things like that. But that's not the case. It's just doing it to where it's right for him. And making sure that we do it the right way. So that's what's going on. Don't listen to him on Twitter where he's like, Croc fired me. Talk to somebody else. He's just joking. Gammon here says, I think we draft both wide receiver and DN. Both positions are deep at that position. Platoon both units. Signing the offensive line is Brandon Aiyuk. Is BA the next Cooks/Cooper? Cooks/Cooper. Cooks.
Amari Cooper.
Oh.
Like
it might be Cooper Cup. It might be that looks like Brandon Cooks. But Brandon Cooks and Amari Cooper are different. But if it's Cooper Cup, I don't know, Gam, you gotta elaborate on that part. But as far as the way to address that, I would say this. Offensive line is a huge need. And Trent Williams ain't getting no younger. And you have to find a replacement for him and maybe start that person at right tackle. We know it's not McKivitz. Yeah. So can you potentially draft a guy that you want to put at left tackle but start him off at right tackle? That would be a big goal of mine if I'm the 49ers. Now, 49ers likely will draft very late, and the best offensive tackles are going much higher than where the 49ers pick. So how do you trade up around the top 10 to potentially get a guy like that? Like, that's the tough part. So then maybe you could say DN. I would say this. If the 49ers stay put, their best bet is probably drafting a receiver that has big time ability. Like as far as value goes, whatever DN, typically you see TJ Watt was drafted 26th, 27th overall, right? Like first round. So sometimes you'll see that, but more times than not, think about the best pass rushers in the league and where they are taken. They typically go top 5. Brian Burns sliding out the top 10 was criminal, especially with guys like Cleveland Farrell being drafted over him. You typically don't see that. Burns was freakish. He was just a little lean, and I don't know. People were like, oh, but he still was taken in the top 15 or top 16, somewhere around there, pick 16, 17, somewhere right there. The 49ers need to get in that type of range. If you're talking about receiver, if you're talking about D-line or offensive lineman, it needs to be in that range. Now, also, signing offensive lineman, I just think it's typically offensive lineman that hits the market, you're going to be paying way more than what that player's worth. So ideally, you want to try to attack it in the draft. So 49ers, again, they definitely have to, they got some decisions to make with how they want to attack this. But I do think your priority needs to be protecting your quarterback. How do you go about doing that when typically the plug and play guys at tackle usually aren't going at that part of the draft? So they had a great opportunity to do it. You go back to the draft when they drafted Brandon Aiyuk. If they would have stayed pat at 13 and taken Tristan Wirfs, maybe we're not even having this conversation because you got Tristan Wirfs. But again, that didn't make sense because maybe they just knew they were going to get Trent Williams. Yeah. They could have drafted Trent Wirfs over taking Trent Williams. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff because they knew that Staley was retiring. All right, so I can't even. We'll go down that rabbit hole in the offseason. Come offseason, we'll talk about all that. But he does say Amari Cooper, so you're right about that, and Brandon Cooks as a journeyman receiver. I don't see that for Brandon Aiyuk. And, but with all that, it's a little weird, right? Like Amari Cooper, he was really good for the Raiders, but they weren't paying guys and they were in a bad situation. So, hey, we could trade Amari Cooper and get a first-round pick. Cool. They traded him to Dallas mid-year when they were already bad. Cowboys utilized him and then got CeeDee Lamb. He ended up being their future. So then it's like, all right, let's move on from Cooper. And he's doing cool on the Browns. I think everybody's situation is different. Now, Cooks, he's been traded several times, and everywhere he's gone, he's kind of been a 1,000-yard receiver for the most part. Likely won't be that for Dallas Cowboys, but I don't know. Both those receivers are good receivers, so I think I see what you're saying there. All right. Last thing before we get out of here, we've been on longer than an hour. My shoulder. So you're saying rotator cuff. Somebody else mentioned that to me. My guy said it might be a slight rotator cuff tear.
Tendinitis or tendinitis, depends. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, he was like, it might be a slight tear based on what I was explaining to him. But like I said, when I put my arm behind my back, like I could feel it. I could feel that. And it's like the sharp pain, like a sharp pain right in there.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I always feel the need to have to stretch. Like always, if you guys see me, sometimes even on Locked On, you'll see me like do this. And I'm like, I always feel the need to stretch that. Yeah. But right now it's like, it's a really sharp, it's a pain. It's not like, oh, I'm sore from, oh man, that was a really good workout. I'm sore. It's like, this hurts, It's a little different. So
it could be, you want to make sure no labral tear, arthritic changes can cause little labral tears, injuries, things like that. But it's hard because a lot of the maneuvers, the testing that you do is hands-on. You're in California.
I know. I'm going to make it out to Tampa. My hip, not that bad right now. This shoulder is killing me.
Yeah. I'm going to send you some stuff to do just to see if maybe we can gently bring it back. If it's just a tendinitis, we might be able to calm it down and see if we can get it feeling better. And if not, then maybe, I'll have to send you for some additional imaging.
I know. I have insurance. So my wife is like, dude, we got insurance. Just use it. Go see the doctor. So maybe I'll just go see the doctor. We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't want them to say, "Hey, this is torn and you can't work out or you can't lift for X amount." I don't want that. Like, I don't want to hear that. So it's like I'd rather not go and just try to work through it. But it's not getting any better, and it's hurting actually more now.
Well, the important part of if you do have a tear, it is important to get it diagnosed and corrected quicker, because the longer you wait, scar tissue gets laid down, and then it shortens the tendon or the ligament, and it can't, like, to try to reattach it later is very difficult because you have to lift it, and it doesn't have the same stretchability to get it back into position. So get it diagnosed sooner than later, and it's probably I would think it's probably maybe just a tendonitis more so than a tear.
Well, I hope so. Jerome Smith says, draft wise, O-line, hands down, another reason to keep Brandon Aiyuk. We know Kyle is. We really want to wait wait to get another number one receiver on the field. I know. That's a part too. Well, I do think that they did a good job of getting Debo on the field, but again, his usage as a rookie was a little different as opposed to the way they used him later. All right, we'll get into all the draft talk. Just not yet. Appreciate everybody for coming on. Coach Dezi, thank you so much. And I haven't said this in a while, but you are on Twitter, so can you let everybody know where they can find you at?
Yes, I am Coach_Dezi on Twitter and Coach Dezi on Instagram. I have Girlfriends in Football, which is a YouTube channel. We go live 8:00 at night every Wednesday night.
All right. So we'll be back soon. Appreciate everybody for tuning in, and maybe see y'all Friday for sure next Monday. But I don't know, it's a little weird because it's midweek game Thursday. Usually I'm on with Ashley right the day after the game. So, but I think I'm going to Vegas because I have a couple kids that I trained for years. Actually, 3 of them, 2 at San Jose State, 1 at UNLV. So they have a game in Vegas, and the 2 at San Jose State, this is their last college football games ever. So I'm excited to see my boys play. And trying to work that out with my wedding anniversary, which is actually tomorrow.
Did I know this? Because tomorrow is my son's 18th birthday.
Oh, really? November 23rd is my wedding anniversary with my wife. It will be 8 years. 8 years married.
Man, congratulations and happy anniversary.
Thank you. And happy birthday to your son. 18?
18 is my firstborn. So
grown man. He's a grown man now. All right, appreciate everybody, and we'll see y'all soon. Peace.